Getting started with this project, what you should have are 2 pieces of fusible fleece that are 13 by 9.5 inches, 2 pieces of your outer fabric, which will be 13 by 9.5 inches, and then 2 pieces of your liner fabric, something that coordinates with your outer fabric, that is also 13 by 9.5 inches. In addition to that, you will take your liner fabric and cut a 2 1/4 by 7 inch piece, and this will end up being the tabs that are on both ends of your boxy zipper pouch. You will take your fusible fleece and you're going to feel the top of it to make sure that you have the bumpy side up. The bumpy side has the glue on it, and then you will take one of your outer pieces and you're going to lay the wrong side of your outer piece in line with the fusible fleece, and you will go press that on the iron until all of that glue melts and secures those 2 pieces together. So the fabric will stick to the bumpy glue. You'll repeat that same step using the other outer piece. So bumpy glue side is up, fabric is wrong side touching the bumpy glue side, and we'll press both of those to secure them. For the next step, you will need a long zipper. So you could technically do this project with a 14-inch zipper. I have purchased a 16-inch zipper, and the reason is when you have a zipper that is extra long, then you don't have to deal as much with the zipper pull. You can keep it out of the way a little bit better. So what you will have is your fabric that you've just pressed. I've pressed the fusible fleece, now it's attached to the back. I've got it right side up, and this is along the 13-inch side. I'm going to take my zipper. So this would be the zipper teeth. Here's the zipper pull. Okay, I'm actually going to turn this so that it's on the left, but I am going to lay the zipper teeth, which is the right side of the zipper, face down on to the top edge of that piece. Okay, so it will look like that. And then the next thing you need is one of your liner pieces, and this will go right sides together. So what you want to do here is just lay it across the top edge so it matches along here. And then you will place perpendicular to the edge several pins to hold it in place until you are ready to sew it. I'm going to show my students in my classroom how to set their machine up for a zipper foot. Now, if you are sewing this at home, you could actually use a regular presser foot, most likely, or a zipper foot on your machine. For the baby lock Rachel, we're going to turn the machine to a 2, and that will center the needle. And then what you need to do is raise your presser foot, and then back behind the presser foot is a black button. Just push it, and the presser foot will fall off. I'm going to put mine in the drawer right there to store it. And then you will look at the zipper foot. It has a bar going across the middle, and I am going to attach it on the left side. To do that, I'm just going to line it up. Okay, line it up right here. And you can either just push up to attach it and kind of pop it in place, or line it up and quickly drop your presser foot. Okay, so now my zipper foot is on, and then you can go ahead and stitch on the needle, or stitch on the zipper, and let me show you how to do that now. So we had just put this all together where we have the right side of the main fabric, the zipper going right side, or the zipper teeth going down, and then on top of that we had the liner fabric right sides together. What you would do is you're going to slide the fabric and the zipper underneath the new zipper foot, and what you're going to do is you're going to align the boxy edge with the zipper teeth. And what actually happens is the edge of zipper foot is going to stay even with the edge of your fabric. Just like when you've sewn other projects and the edge of the regular presser foot is lined up with the edge of the fabric, this time the front part of the zipper foot on the right hand side, so right over here, is going to stay lined up with the edge of your fabric. You do want to backstitch when you start and when you stop. After sewing, you should have something that looks like this, and it's about 1/4 of an inch from the edge of the zipper. You'll want to take the two ends and open up. So my liner is now folded back, and then my main fabric is laying here in front of me. What you're gonna do is take a hold of the zipper itself, and now I'm gonna lay the liner down on the table. And so you really can't see it anymore, but this is exactly what we want to happen. Here, let me smooth this out. Okay, we want it to be the right side of the zipper, right side of the fabric, and then if I flip it all the way over, I've got the right side of the fabric out here, okay? Before actually stitching, you do want to press this just a little bit. So I'm on the liner side, and I'm just gonna pull the liner so that it lines up even across the bottom with my fusible fleece, okay? And then I'm just gonna press it and just kind of manipulate the zipper a little bit so that it folds down. Right here, you don't want it to be bent underneath. You want it to be coming back that way, and then the zipper is laying flat. This is folded over and coming down, lined up with the bottom edge. Next, what we're going to do is we are going to top stitch all along this edge, and you want to keep it pretty close to where you have already stitched it on. So right about where my fingernail is hitting, 1/8 of an inch or less from the edge. And that again is a top stitch, and that will just keep things looking nice and neat. It's really just a finishing stitch for this project. For this part of the process, I'm going to turn my machine back to a 1. And again, this is the top stitching. So now what I want to look at is I want to look at the left edge of the foot in the back. So not this front part that we looked at earlier, but the left edge in the back. I want to line it up with where the fabric is folded over. So when I lower my needle and have that lined up, it gives me right at a 1/8 of an inch seam allowance for my top stitch. I'm gonna do that all the way down this side. Okay, so now I'm going to take my other main fabric. This is the outside piece. I'm going to lay it down here, and then I'm going to take the pieces that I have already stitched. So I've already sewn the zipper on, I've top stitched across. You've got the right sides of both the outside fabric and the liner there. But I'm going to flip this over so that the zipper teeth are right sides together with the main fabric. And you want to make sure these are lined up on the sides, and that this side of the zipper that you've not yet sewn on is lined up across the top, okay? And then your liner piece is going to go wrong side up, right side down, across the top edge of the zipper. And again, we're lining up on the side. This little edge right here should be exposed. It's not gonna be even right this second. And then you will, just like you did previously for the first side, just put a few pins in to hold it in place until you are ready to sew it on using the zipper foot. Return your machine to a 2 and stitch the zipper on just as you did on the first side, lining up with the right edge of the front of the foot with the right edge of your fabric. And just as you had previously done on the other side, you're gonna flip that liner side over, and this is your front piece. Now I'm going to press this so that the edge of the liner lines up with the fusible fleece, and then it lays smooth and flat right across here. You'll want to return your machine back to a 1 in order to do your stitching for your top stitch on this side of the zipper. So we're just going to repeat this step over here on the left. We're going to do it over here on the right side of the zipper, about 1/8 of an inch away from the edge. And if you'll remember, you're going to be lining up this folded edge with the left hand side of your zipper foot on the back. We've just finished top stitching, so now we are going to bring the right sides together. So our main fabric will lay one side on top of the other, and we're going to line up along the sides across the bottom. But what we're going to focus on first is the bottom. We're going to stitch straight across using a 1/4 of an inch seam allowance and back stitch at both ends. You'll want to return using your regular presser foot, and you'll return the zipper foot back to wherever you found it if you're in my classroom. To put your zipper or your regular foot back on, just line the bar up with the presser foot, lower the lever, and it should grab a hold of that bar. Slide your fabric underneath the presser foot, have it hanging off the back of the machine, and then you will be ready, once you pin this in a few places, to go ahead and stitch across here. I am just going to make sure they're all lined up. So really we have 6 layers that are being stitched together right now. We have our 3 layers of one side and 3 layers on the other. I'm going to turn my machine to a 2. Next, we will turn the machine to a 5 to put in a zigzag stitch along the raw edge. To do that, I'm going to lower my needle, slide my fabric next to the needle, then lower my presser foot. And I do want to back stitch. Show you what happened here. So this side is the side that I was looking at while I was sewing. Looks great, beautiful. But then I flip it over, and I'm not sure how well you can see this, but I didn't catch all of the fabric in the zigzag. It was caught in the seam, but not in the zigzag. So I'm going to go back to the machine and zigzag from this side with this side up, so that I don't have any of the raw edge, because I don't want it to start coming unraveled as I use the bag. So I am going to zigzag again along this edge. So what we now have is a one full piece, okay? And it's open on the sides. We haven't done anything on the sides yet. Real quick, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna trim off all this extra fabric that is starting to fray. That was just outside of that zigzag. And then any other loose threads that you find, go ahead and trim those off. Just clean it up. And then you are ready to start putting all the pieces of this project together. If you've made a lanyard in class already, you already know how to do this next step. So you will have your 2 1/4 by 7 inch piece. You'll press it. I'm actually just pressing mine to smooth it. What you're gonna do is just press it in half like this, hot dog style, and get a crease in this side. So I've got my first crease, and I'm going to open it up, and I'm going to bring one of my raw edges to the crease. So I'm just folding it in toward the crease. Press that down. And then I'm going to repeat that with this side. This long edge is going to come to the middle where that original crease was. Press it, and I'll make a new crease. Okay, and then I'm going to fold it in half one more time, back in the same direction that I had originally folded it. Sometimes I think students want to fold it backwards, but when you do that, you still have these raw edges out here. So what you're doing, I have just pressed my sides in to the center. I'm going to fold one more time. This is exactly like, if you're in my class, this is exactly like Seam Sample 8, where I am now going to top stitch down both of the long edges. Next, we're going to take that long tab, just fold it in half, and then you'll take your shears to the loop, pull tight, and clip across there. So now you're making two 3.5 inch tabs. All right, you're going to reach over here, grab a hold of the zipper, pull, and open the zipper halfway. And then you're going to flatten out. So this seam that you stitch across the bottom will actually lay down in the middle. So it's down here. And then you want your zipper to reach straight across from it. Okay, so here's my opening on the bottom. My zipper should lay right on top of that. And then I'm just going to use my hands to press that out. Okay. All right, next we need to add our tabs. I'm going to take the tab that is going to be on the open side of the zipper, and it is so important to do this step where we open the zipper 1/2 to 3/4 of the way, because you're getting ready to sew these sides up, and if you had that zipper closed right now, you would have no way of getting into your bag. So you've got to have the zipper open for this step. So I'm going to take this is 1/2 of my original length of my loop. So this is 3.5 inches. I'm going to fold it in half, and I'm going to have this open edge turned so that it faces the edge of the fabric. Okay, so I'm going to actually lay it right there on the opening, and I'm going to place one pin temporarily to hold it in place. And then I'm going to lay this half of the zipper right on top of that and put one more pin in to secure it. So I want to make sure my loop doesn't shift around, and I want to make sure my zipper teeth are close together. So I don't want to pin way over here. I need to pin where my zipper teeth are touching. So my next pin is going to go right here. Okay, and then as I stitch, that'll end up closing up. Okay, so we've got this side taken care of. Now I'm going to do the same thing with my second loop. Fold it. The open edge is going to face the edge here. And what I'm wanting there is to have a loop on the inside. Okay, so I'm going to lay that down. This side's a little easier. I just have to lay this down flat and put one pin in to hold it all in place. If you are an experienced seamstress right now, or seamster or sewer or whatever you want to call yourself, if you are experienced and you feel like your sides are perfect and you're not going to miss anything, you can start with 1/4 inch seam. But because we are making this in a beginning sewing class, we are going to use a 1/2 inch seam allowance. So you are going to have your machine on a 1, and your edge of your fabric is going to be just outside the right edge of the presser foot, and you'll be looking at a line on your throat plate for a 1/2 inch seam allowance. If you are in my class and you have these shears in your hand, please put them away. You will not be using the nice fabric shears to cut through your zipper, okay? Instead, you will just go into the regular scissors container and use a regular pair of scissors. Here at home, I have just an old pair of shears that I use as my scissors to cut through things like zippers. So we're gonna trim off the zipper ends. I can do this because I have stitched across here already. Had I not stitched across here, I would not want to cut the zipper off because I would be scared that the zipper pull would just go flying, okay? So on this side, I'm going to trim it off as well. Okay, might take a couple slices to get through it. Okay, so we've trimmed that down. And now this next step is going to require you to just cut the excess off so that you are left with 1/4 of an inch seam allowance. So I'm just basically cutting, this was a 1/2 inch seam allowance. I'm going to cut it in half. Just trim it off, trim half of it off. And what that does is it just decreases the bulkiness. So you are going to trim that seam allowance in half. You'll be left with 1/4 of an inch between the stitching and the edge of the fabric. And then we're going to zigzag across that edge on this side and on this side, just like we had previously done with the bottom. Quick, before I actually go do the zigzag, I just wanted you to see what it looks like. It's basically, again, just stitch 1/4 inch space before you get to the edge. Okay, so trim it up nice and neat and go do the zigzag. I'm not going to say anything else except for you need to have your machine on F5 while you are doing it, but you're doing exactly what you had previously done on this bottom part. All right, so this next step you're going to do on all 4 corners. You are going to need a ruler and you are measuring over 2 inches on all corners. So I'm just gonna put a mark right here just to remind me where I'm looking. And I'm gonna put a mark right here. So that is 2 inches on this side, 2 inches on this side. And then I'm gonna color in right here. If you have a light colored fabric, then you will use just a fabric marker. If you have a really dark fabric, you could use a white marking pencil or a piece of chalk to mark this. So I'm going to repeat that process on all 4 corners. Okay, now I need to reach my hand in the opening where the zipper is open, and I'm just going to flatten out. See where that, so I had drawn in that line right here on the side. I'm going to flatten this out. I'm going to put a pin in just to hold it in place. And I also kind of want to look at this side and see what direction that seam is wanting to lay open. Mine's wanting to go toward the right, so I'm going to let it. Okay. So where you find the end of your 2-inch line, now you're going to draw a line going straight across. So here's the end of my 2-inch line. Now I'm going to draw going straight across there. Got to kind of manipulate the fabric a little bit to get it to get out of your way. And I will repeat that process on all 4 corners. Here is what your boxy pouch will look like right before you stitch it. You've got these little ears on all 4 corners, and that line you drew in is going to be your stitching line. You do want to start out on the edge of the fabric, back stitch, stitch across the line, and back stitch when you finish. Because you are stitching on the line, it doesn't matter if your machine is on a 1 or if it's on a 2, as long as your needle is going up and down on the line that you've drawn in. Students in my classroom will take a seam gauge and set it at 1/4 inch, so that is the second line on your seam gauge, and you are going to draw from the stitch you just made, and we're going toward the point, and you will just put dashes in even with 1/4 inch. So straight across there you will have 1/4 inch line of dashes. And then you'll do this on all 4 corners. And then what you're going to do is on that 1/4 inch line, just like you had done on your side seams previously, you're going to trim off that extra fabric. So right now you're trimming off the corners. But you're not getting too close to the stitching. The stitching is important. We want to leave 1/4 inch. So this should have just fallen off of your project if you've cut that corner off. And you will repeat that process on all of the 3 other sides. Now, if you're not in my classroom doing this, if you have a rotary mat at home, usually on your mat there will be 1/4 inch line. So I'm looking here from the edge of my ruler to this first line is 1/4 inch. So on this, I can just lay that first 1/4 inch line even with my seam. It's even with my seam. That red stitch is underneath that 1/4 inch line. And then using the rotary cutter, I can trim off that end piece. Okay, so if you are in my classroom, you need to use your seam gauge, measure, and cut. If you are anywhere else and you have access to a rotary blade, just use your ruler and blade to cut it off. So we are finished cutting all 4 corners off. And next we need to go in and zigzag, just like we've previously done on those other stages of the project, and zigzag along all 4 of the boxed corners. And that is it. Once we've zigzagged, the project is finished. Reminder on the zigzag, turn your machine to a 5 and make sure you backstitch at the beginning and ending of all of your seams. All right, if you've just zigzagged on all 4 of your cutoff pieces for your boxed corners, then you are done. Now you just need to flip your bag where it is right side out. And kind of poke out the corners a little bit. Okay, and then you find your zipper pull. Make sure it closes nicely. And you have a finished boxed zipper pouch